Hello, everybody. All right. Um, Nice to be back again. And we'll get started when more people come on and join us. I hope everybody had a good week. Uh, yeah. So let me see if I've got any questions waiting on the website or in the email. I think things are going to be slow going today. So no, there's nothing on the website. Let's check email real quick. Yeah, I'm in slow go mode. Yeah, so I'm not seeing anything. Oh, looks like someone bought something at the store. Okay. All right. This will be a good time to ask questions. Since we are going slow. Let me close some windows here. All right. So, what do we want to talk about? I don't know how much. Hello, Karen. Oh, I thought you weren't going to be here today. All right. So, I guess I could tell you guys a little bit about. Karen says I got back earlier than I thought. Very hot outside. Yes, it's supposed to be a scorcher here too. So yeah, let me tell you just a little bit. I won't be sharing details. But I checked into the hospital in an emergency room Friday night, and you can see I've got. They couldn't find, so I've got all over the place on both arms. They couldn't find sometimes the vein. That's the only evidence you can see that I was at the hospital. But I was there for, I think, 4.5 days. I'll tell you what the worst part was. The worst part was being in bed all that time. I did get up a little bit, but wow. Hello, Seppo. Nice to see you. So, yes. Yeah, I'm not expecting a lot of people to show up today because I only put the link up a half hour ago. So we'll see how that turns out. But yes, I was in the hospital for 4 days and lots of tests, stuff like that. I won't tell you guys what, and I have my reasons for that. And for the most part, I'll tell you what, for the most part, I felt fine after I got home. Right now, I feel a little under the weather, but I think maybe I'm just tired. I taught this morning. First lesson was at 8:30. It's 1:30 now, so yeah, I might just be tired. Anyway, Anyone got any questions? My brain still works. In fact, I've been, I don't know, very creative lately. I finished editing the unadorned trumpet hymns, which um, I'm gonna change the name of the book. I think I'm gonna change the name to Unadorned Hymn Duets, just because other instruments can play it. I'll market it as a trumpet duet book, but the book is done. I just need to finish writing the introduction, and then get all the pages squared away and all that kind of stuff. But that book is done. It was done again, like it was done a month ago. But I'll tell you guys that story since we don't have any questions. Um, so I think it's what, 135 hymns. Oh, let me look. And I decided, hey, let's read through it with one of my students. And we would spend the whole time reading through, playing the duets. And one of the decisions I made was to not put slurs. And the reason I didn't want slurs was because I wanted people to be free to do it the way they wanted to do it. Well, it turns out that, okay, 133 hymns. It turns out that it's it's too hard for the students to do that. It's better if I just put the slurs in, and if someone wants to be creative, they can put their own slurs, right? They don't have to read my slurs. But for those people who are less creative, then it's better to have the slurs there so that they can, uh, you know. Oh, we got a question. Seppa says, do you have tips for starting practice after a long break? Yeah, so basically, maybe you haven't heard this story before, but the whole physical trumpet pyramid thing was developed for that purpose. I thought I was going to go into the army, and I had just made all my changes. I thought I was going to have to go into the army and go to boot camp. I was told that's about 3 months of that you're not allowed to take your horn, you can't practice, right? Because you're doing all that army stuff. Well, I didn't want to forget what I learned before I went in. So I wrote out a system to get me back into trumpet playing after the boot camp. That system that I wrote down, even though I didn't need it because I didn't go into the army, even though I didn't need it, that became the physical trumpet pyramid. So now, what's different now from back then is we have those different levels, right? So if the longer you've been off, the lower the level is that you should start on. I commonly take as long as a month off. I know that freaks people out. I commonly take as much as a month off, um, and most of the time I just start back up where I was. Why do I take a month off? Because I don't practice when I travel, and when we go to South Africa, now it's different. The last time we went, because I was in a jazz festival, so it ended up not being a whole month off. But in previous trips to South Africa, I would go, take my horn, maybe play for the students at the school, maybe play a little bit for the family, play a little bit at church. Um, not enough to keep me in shape, not enough to, we're talking about 2 or 3 minutes at a time. And you know what? For that matter, I remember telling you guys last time that there's evidence, because I had been cutting back on the range. I haven't played Super C or even up to G for that matter in my practice sessions. We're creeping up on a year now. Well, I think we're about 3 months short of a year that I haven't played up to the G in my practice time. But I can still play Super C. And so another anecdotal example of that was this time I spent in the hospital in the bed, right? Uh, when I got out of the hospital, I couldn't walk a straight line. That's how weak I had become. Just in 4 days. And so, like, walking at the store was a chore. Actually, it still is. Yesterday, we did a walk around the block. That was tough. That was tough. And so, but what about my horn? I went the same amount of time without playing my horn. It's the same body. Absolutely no loss. Absolutely no loss to my ability to play the trumpet. So, yeah, so I do think that you have to be careful, and you do want to come back on the physical trumpet pyramid. What does that mean? You come back and you start with air first. Make sure your air is established before you start anything else. That's paramount. Then you do some lip buzz if you are someone who does lip buzz. Then you do mouthpiece buzz. Now the mouthpiece buzz is not as optional. Then you do some long tones. I like expansion long tones. You can do spider long tones. You can do Caruso type stuff. Some kind of long tone. Then after the long tones, we do scales. After the scales, we do lip slurs. After the lip slurs, we do pedal tones. After we do the pedal tones, we do the articulation. And that's, if you're doing my method, you're doing that every day anyway, right? And it's the order of those exercises that matters. The whole point of the trumpet pyramid is not that you do my exercises. It's when I first started doing this, it wasn't my exercises. I was making copies out of books. And really, to be honest, the only reason I ever started writing my own exercises was because I didn't know anything about copyright, about the legal side of it. So I just figured it would be a lot easier legally to just write my own stuff and not have to worry about who gets what, you know, legal recognition or payments, stuff like that. So then once I crossed that line and started writing my own, that's when I realized I could start modifying them to be actually more applicable to what my method was. But yes, originally it wasn't my books. Originally I was using all the same books everybody else uses. And that's why people think I'm arrogant. Well, I'm assuming people think I'm arrogant. I know that there's a famous guy that thinks that way of me. At least one famous guy. When I say stuff like, my exercises are better, I don't do Arvin anymore, my exercises are better. I don't do Herbert L. Clark anymore, my exercises are better. I don't do, what's the one, the Czechoslovakian, I forget his name. Anyway, I don't do any of those staples anymore because I took all of those. That's what I was doing in the first place. Even the Chickwits, my stuff is better than the Chickwits. And so all these guys that worship those trumpet teachers and those trumpet books, all of those guys will hear somebody like me I really am just, people get upset when I say this, I really am just a nobody. In the context of the trumpet world, I acknowledge that I'm a nobody. That doesn't mean that my stuff doesn't work, right? I think we have to separate. We have to distinguish between what's practical and meaningful and has a true benefit and that which is popular. Things are not only popular just because that they work. Okay? There are things that, like, my stuff is a wonderful example. My stuff is not popular, but it works. Now, when I say better, I mean better for me, better for my students. Now, getting back to the point, the reason why I bought that, so that's a huge tangent. Getting back to the point, you don't have to use the exercises I wrote to do the physical trumpet pyramid. You just have to do do those types of exercises in that order. Now, I don't mind talking about why my exercises are better. One of the reasons why I had to alter the exercises was to get the range to match up with the range of the other exercises, right? So the articulation needs to be the same range as the lip slurs, needs to be the same range as the long tones, needs to be the same range as the double tone and the triple tone. That's why I rewrote them all. That's why we did the original exercises, is so that it would be everything would fit together. Karen says, one of my trumpets has sluggish valves. Any ideas of how to make them more responsive on a regular basis? Yes. Now this is a little controversial because they say that you'll get red rot if you do this, I've been doing it on my trumpet for over 20 years, 27 years to be exact. Uh, I don't have significant red rot, okay? Red rot is basically, I think, a kind of rust where the metal starts to corrode and fall away. So basically, I take the horn. Now, I haven't done this a lot lately just because I've not been well. I know that's a terrible excuse. I never thought I would be one of those guys, but I've never been not well my whole life. Okay. Um, I've never had that. That's not me. And it's I don't know. I now I have to admit I have more humility now. Oh my. It's like it's like you know God was saying, um, "You're too proud. Let me bring you down a couple notches." Uh, anyway, so I've had some motivation issues lately. Um, so what I do is I put the trumpet under the sink, and since I have a raw brass, I'm not concerned about the lacquer. If you have a silver instrument or raw brass, you don't have to worry about the temperature. Make it as hot as you can, but you let the water come through here, and I hold it like this so that the the ring doesn't the slide doesn't come out. And while it's doing the water coming through, I do the valve like this. See, that way it sort of flushes the dirt out of the valves. Okay? Because that's what it is. You've got microscopic dirt. Everybody does. We all do. You've got microscopic dirt in the valves, and it does cause it um, to stick every once in a while. So you do this while the water is flowing through. Make it hot water. Okay. Now this is aside from the cleaning. You don't do this instead of a cleaning. You do. I call it a rinse. I rinse my trumpet out. So then I will hold the first valve down and do this. Then I'll put the two valves down and do this. Then when I'm done, I'll turn the horn around, blow all the water out. Um, and then uh, that's when after I do that, that's when I oil the valves. Now, maybe you do get red rot if you do that. See, I do that before I play. So while I'm practicing, I'm continually emptying the water from the. Uh, does that make sense? If you do it at the end, then you could have. Hey, there's Vladdy. That Vladdy just photobombed us. So yeah, if you do it at the end, if you do it at the end, then that water that didn't get out because you're not going to get all of it out just by blowing a little bit. Almost always the first few notes I have still have gurgling, right? If you do it at the end, there's still going to be water in there. That water will have chlorine in it. So yeah, do it at the end and you might have red rot. Maybe that's the reason I don't get red rot, because I do it beforehand and all that water gets flushed out of there. I hope that makes sense. I apologize again for my hair. I have a very strict schedule for my getting my hair done, and I went to go get it done. Uh, I have a barber I go to, and he had a sign up on his barbershop said that he's in surgery. So I had to skip a whole month. So this is the last week. I always go the first week of the month. So that's why I look like this. It's not because I was in the hospital. I look like an old sick dude. All right. Any other questions? These are good questions. What else do you want to talk about? Now, if any of you have, I might as well say this, if any of you have tried to email me, and I haven't got back to you, I'm still working on that. When I got out of the hospital, uh, basically, between trying to get my life straight, like with the health stuff, and uh, taking, getting students taught and stuff like that, I've been short on time to get some of these emails responded to. I know that's really, really rude. I apologize for that. Um, yeah. So I will, maybe today I'll sit and go through all the emails I got while I was in the hospital. All right. Any other questions? All right. There's a lot more people here now than I thought there would be. Someone needs to ask a question. It can be anything trumpet related. It doesn't have to be my method. Um, and if it's something I don't know anything about, I'll just tell you I don't know anything about it. Um, it can be music related. Once again, if it's something I don't know anything about, I'll just tell you that. Um, Seppo says, maybe I have asked this before, but how to have the very first lesson with a new starter age around 8. So I always start, okay, I shouldn't say always. In theory, in theory, hello, Jeffrey. In theory, I start them all on solfeggio. Not a whole bunch of solfeggio, but I've got a sheet. Um, and So we want them to be able to go, and it's relative solfeggio. I don't want them. I'm not gonna try to get them to sing exact notes for like do, but I want them to be able to go do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, do. I want to be able to do that, and then going down do, ti, la, ti, do, maybe down to so. Um, and we might do intervals. It depends on the student. Some people really, really, really struggle with solfeggio, and I don't want to stress them out too much. But oftentimes, if now, when would I not do solfeggio? If they already play piano, then maybe we're not going to do solfeggio. If they are singers, maybe we won't do that. So it's not going to be every single time. But yes, I like to start with solfeggio. I have a friend that grew up in Monterrey. Monterrey is a city in Mexico, and he said before he was even allowed to choose an instrument, they had to master, not just be able to do it. They had to master solfeggio before they were even allowed to choose an instrument. And I like that. I really do. So, from the solfeggio, we will do the lip buzz. At first, we want them to just do one note. We don't care what note it is, just one note. Now, I shouldn't say we don't care what note it is. If they do a tuba note, then we'll tell them that's a tuba note. Don't, we're trying to play trumpet, and I'll show them what the trumpet embouchure looks like. And then usually they can get a buzz like that. Now, this is after we do solfeggio. Now, the first objective, what I want them to accomplish first, is to be able to hold that note steady. Because when they first start doing it, almost always, when they do that first lip buzz, it will be all over the place. Right? If they are doing that, they're still not ready yet to change notes. I hope that makes sense. It doesn't have to be that pitch. All of my lip buzzes have been high lately. I don't know what that is. I have to work to bring the lip buzz down. That's a better one for a beginner, right? So after they've done solfeggio, I want them to be able to buzz a single note without any distraction, without any we don't want the pitch to change. We don't want the volume to change. We want it to be steady. And if they do a short one like that, I will tell them that's not long enough. Hold it longer. Hold it to a count of how many. Then we start playing with changing the notes. So the same exercise they did in the solfeggio, we do now on the lip buzz. Same exact exercise. So like the first exercise is to start on a pitch, go up, hold it, and then back down. Now, I try to get them to do whole steps. That's the point of doing the solfeggio. But at this point, if they do a minor third or a major third or even a perfect fourth, we're more concerned about whether it's steady or not than we are with the actual pitch. Yes, we want to improve the pitch, but in that first lesson, being steady is more important than everything else. Okay? I think what happens is as the exercises increase in range, they're forced to meter, to measure the intervals between. So a lot of times when they just do 2 notes, a lot of times that second note will be too high. But when they start adding 5 notes, they instinctively make those intervals smaller. And especially if they did the solfeggio first, then they somewhere along the way that sound kicks in and they start playing whole steps, half steps, like a regular scale. So yeah, that's and that's about as far as we get. Sometimes what I just said here, that can be the third or fourth lesson. I would much rather have them go slow at the beginning than to try to speed them up through that. Seppo asks, do you do the exercises by ear without notes? No, we do with notes. So I have a very different way to approach that. I give them the music as it's written with the full notation. I don't teach them anything about it. I don't teach them uh, what a half note is, what a quarter note is. I don't teach them any of that. We learn that as we go. So even though all of the notation is there, so let's say the first note is C, all they're learning at that point is that note is C. And sometimes, because we don't want to teach them more than one thing at a time. This is a big mistake when we try to multiple. The brain doesn't work like that. The brain doesn't digest stuff like that. Learn that the note that has the line through it underneath the staff, right, the ledger line, they learn that is C. Okay? Now, they don't realize that what they're buzzing is not C. They don't realize that the mouthpiece or what they're singing is not C. But they learn that's their first step in learning the names of the notes and stuff like that. I was the same way with my son, and there are people who say that was not correct. That there's I never baby talked to my son, and there are people who say that they don't develop well if you don't baby talk to them. To your children. Uh, I just never did that, and Uh, that's how I am all the time. I give them the whole package, and they learn as they go. They learn as they go. So yes, we do it with notes. And now I do believe in doing some stuff without notes, but that comes later. Because it takes so long to teach them how to read. That's a good question. Yeah, so here's the thing about the beginners. There are no two beginners that are the same. Beginners are the hardest students to teach because they all, especially in my business model is not a traditional trumpet lesson model. My business model is more of we could say, a commercial model, not an academic model. So there's academic trumpet lessons, and then there's commercial trumpet lessons. What are the commercial? Well, let's talk about what is academic, because I would say 99.9% of the trumpet teachers in the world are probably academic. And what I mean by that is that the academic approach is basically, I'm the master, you do what I say. If you want to be my student, you have to do what I tell you to. Otherwise, I'm going to kick you out of my studio because you're not good for me. I'm not good for you. You're not good for me because you're not going to help me get a better reputation. I'm not good for you because you're not going to get better under my teaching. That's the academic approach. There's a standard. You have to meet that standard. As a student, you have to come up to my standard. I don't teach like that. The commercial approach to teaching is that you come to me as a customer, as a client, and my job is to help you get where you want to go. It's an entirely different business model. My job is an entirely different job. I'm not trying to bring you up to a standard. You have to bring that standard with you to the lesson. I can't make you have that standard, not under this model. I hope that makes sense. So you come to me, you tell me what you want. If what you want is you want a better range, I'm going to work with you to get a better range. If you come to me and say, I want to make Allstate, we're going to work together to help you get to Allstate. If you come to me, so how many times has this happened? Someone says, I just want to learn this song. I had one woman, she said, I just want to learn how to play, because she was a trumpet player long ago. They had a musical or something like that at the school that she taught at, and she wanted to play, I don't remember My Funny Valentine or Somewhere Over the Rainbow, some ballad like that. She took just enough lessons to learn that song, and then I never saw her again. So Allstate is a competition. Simple asks, what's Allstate? So each of the states have a competition where all the high school students audition and compete against each other so that so in the end, there's a performance of a band that's comprised of all the best students in that state. I made all state twice in high school. Um, I've had literally dozens of students make all state in the last 40 years. Um, and I've even judged all state. So I'm pretty I'm pretty locked in on the all state thing. Um, and my techniques for winning have been greatly enhanced over the years. But yes, so the business model for me teaching is a commercial model. I'm here to help you get what you want. And if that means that someone hears you and you don't impress. See, that's the thing. One of the big differences between the academic teachers and what I do. It doesn't bother me if you go out in public and say you're my student, but you sound terrible. My relationship is not with that public. My relationship is with you, my client, my customer. And if you reach the goal that you said you wanted to reach in our lessons, I'm going to be just as proud of you, whether you sound wonderful or not. I'm just going to be just as proud of you as I am of the guy that makes Allstate. Because you accomplished what you set out to do. So it's a very, very different world. And the reason we're talking about this is, when we talk about beginners and uh, all of it for me comes down to what it is that that student wants to accomplish. I think that's one of the reasons why I stopped complaining and demanding that my students play in an ensemble. Because that was about my standards, not about so why should it matter if a student comes to me and says all I want to be able to do is have fun playing my trumpet? Why should that matter to me? Why should I want them to do better than that? That's, I actually quit. I'm going to tell you guys this story. I got burned out on teaching, believe it or not, because when it comes to teaching, I'm like the Energizer Bunny, right? Uh, Teaching gives me energy. I, I know that contradicts what I said earlier. I said it, I'm tired because I taught today, but here I am, right? Yeah, teaching energizes me. And so, what was I talking about? Oh, yes. I can't believe I just pulled a blank. Um, I can't believe this. There was something I was going to tell you guys. Oh, that's what. Okay, I'm glad I remembered. Um, in the 90s, I'm not making this up. This is true. I had 77 weekly students. And I knew guys that had more. I had 77 weekly students. and then all the other stuff I had going on at the same time. And I got burnout. I got burnout so bad that I quit teaching lessons. I still taught. I would teach. In fact, it was weird because that time I quit teaching weekly for 7 years from 2000 from 1997 to 2004. I quit teaching weekly lessons. It was weird because I say weird, I mean weird in a miraculous way. Um, Students would come from all over the country, one as far as from China, and they would take 4 hours of lessons during this time when I'm not teaching, right? Um, that I was okay with. Come over here, take a long lesson, and then I don't want to see you again. Right? When I was burnt out, that's how it was. People would come, take lessons, because by then my books were already out, and I didn't stop writing books. There's a lot of stuff that was still going on, and so yes, for that 7 years, I was still teaching. I was still doing master classes. I was still doing sectionals. I was still doing all kinds of teaching, just not private lessons. Then, in 2004, I decided to start teaching again, private lessons, weekly. But here's the thing: in order to not burn out again, well, first of all, I told myself I was never going to teach that many students again. And if I wasn't going to teach that many students, then my price had to go up. So that was the first thing. But second of all, I I declared it. I wrote it down. I made sure everybody knows that I will never again care more about my students' progress than they do. And that might be what started this whole commercial angle. Think about how, as a teacher, how liberating that was. Um, you know, because that's what the problem was previously, is I cared about their progress and they didn't. So now it's the other way around. Whatever standard you bring to the lesson, whatever, now you might just bring it verbally. Maybe you can't play at that level yet, but you say that you want that. Like if someone comes to me and says, I want to be, a world-class trumpet player. Well, world-class means you've got a high standard, right? That you're telling me with your mouth you want to have a high standard, but the standard you have right now doesn't match what's coming out of your mouth. That's what we're going to work on in the lesson. Is how do you live to that standard that you said you wanted? So to me, that's a big deal. That's transfer. As a teacher, that's transformational. And the students that are successful like that, and you know what? Karen was one of them. Karen is doing a great job. I don't know if you're still on here, Karen, but yes, Karen I don't know if she can see her own progress, but I see each week a level of, it's not just confidence, it's also skill, and she's starting to blossom. But yes, that's the commercial approach. And I even let the students, like if they say, I don't like lip buzz. And I say, well, why don't you like lip buzz? Oh, I don't know. I just don't like it. Well, we won't do lip buzz. Because I have a way of putting it that I gets people to laugh a little bit. Imagine me as a safari guide. My job is like the safari guide. You know, you're my boss. You hired me to take you on a safari. But I'll tell you what, if I tell you, don't stick your hand in that hole, you should probably not stick your hand in that hole. Right? If I tell you, don't sleep under that tree, even though you're the boss, you're the one that hired me, you probably better not sleep under that tree. Huh? That's how I see trumpet lessons. I have advice. It's not, you're not, you know, you are technically free to do whatever you want to do. Practice, don't practice, um, stuff like that. Do what I say, don't do what I say. But you would probably be better off doing what I say, especially if you're paying me. Karen says, thanks. I fumble over the fingering so much, though. Oh. Anyway, we're winding down. If you guys have any questions about this, I call it a business model. You could call it teaching style. If you have any questions about that, um, I'm more than happy to talk about that. You know, you know, I don't think my teaching model, business model, is for everyone. There are some, mostly children, right? There are some children that need to be in a more demanding environment if they're going to do well. And so if the parents are expecting, so I have students that the parents are expecting high things. And what's amazing about this is that the students are actually pulling this off. But this is an example of students that have that high standard already inside of them. But there are students where their parents are expecting that standard, but the student themselves don't have that standard. And the teachers, the parents are expecting me to instill in them that kind of standard. Maybe I'm not the best teacher for that. Does that make sense? Seppo says academic approach can be problematic these days. The commercial way appears to be more human. That's another part of it. Absolutely. More loving is another way to say it. It's more loving because you're giving of yourself to the student. You're not taking from the student. The academic way has more to do with I shouldn't say taking, but it's not, you know, comparatively to the way I teach, it is taking. You know, a lot of those teachers will not take you if they think it'll hurt their reputation. That's just the bottom line truth. And, you know, I know this because I used to be part of that. So, anyway, once again, we've had another very good Q and A. Hopefully, next time I will have nice looking hair and not be so tired. Um, but yes, thank you guys for hanging out. Always love to see you guys, and um, I appreciate you guys always making this happen. All right. Well, we'll see you next time. God bless you, and have a great week.